Welcome to Public Affairs Roundtable, a discussion of current events in the nation and around the world and how they affect the people of Indiana. Here's your moderator, Larry Lough.
This week on Public Affairs Roundtable, we're going to do something a little different. Do the words Ball State University basketball mean something more to you than they did perhaps 2 years ago? Well, today we're not going to be talking about the usual politics and economics nationally and internationally, a Midwestern perspective on those things that are going on in Washington and Tokyo and London and Paris. Today we're going to talk about athletics at the college level. We're going to talk about student athletes. You'll be hearing that a lot today. And perhaps we'll be doing a little bit of boasting today about a Ball State University basketball program that has seen more than its share of success in the classroom and on the athletic fields. You'll be hearing names that normally wouldn't pop up on this program. We'll be talking about events we wouldn't normally talk about. The Paris McCurdy free throw that won a game versus Oregon State. The upset of Louisville. The fact that Ball State University's basketball team has indeed raised defense to an art form. We'll be talking about the seniors, Curtis Kidd and Scott Nichols, Sean Parrish, the great sixth man, outstanding freshman Chandler Thompson, who wowed him in the NCAA tournament. We'll be talking about the fact that Ball State University, in fact, came very close to beating the eventual national basketball champion, UNLV, closer than anyone came in the tournament. So if it seems a little different, it will be a little different. Our panelists today are Don Purvis, Director of Men's Intercollegiate Athletics at Ball State, Sean Parrish, a senior who is majoring in marketing, who happens to be a member of the basketball team, Bill Richards, tennis coach at Ball State and director of the Cardinal Varsity Club, and Dr. John Worthen, president of Ball State University. Dr. Worthen, I had mentioned student athletes, academics, athletics. I would suspect that the blending of those, the commitment to excellence in both areas, has to come from the top. The president really has to set the tone. How do you do that?
Well, we keep telling everyone how proud we are of the balance that we have at Ball State University and the fact that we began this whole business with student athletes, and it's not our intention, and we don't think it makes very much sense for us to try to move in any other direction. So it's a style, a strategy that fits very well with our university. The basketball team is a great model for the whole university because we emphasize balance in a lot of things at the university. Liberal arts and professional education, teaching and research. In our fundraising program, we're going to put half the money into academic programs and scholarships and half the money into bricks and mortar. So balance and perspective are key words for us at Ball State University.
Don, the NCAA successes that the basketball team realized means a lot in terms of image, in terms of dollars. Can we define either one? Do we know at this point what it means in terms of income to the university? Can we say what it means in terms of image?
Well, Larry, in terms of image, it means a great deal. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, sometimes intercollegiate athletics is very much a window through which the general public views an institution. Some would go so far as to say they actually identify the quality of the institution relative to the notoriety of their athletic teams. And while I don't think that would be an accurate gauge, it is one that is sometimes applied. Financially, the impact of this year's NCAA basketball tournament participation, we feel the shares will be in a range of about $280,000 per game, which would, of course, give us about 840, something like that. You have to understand, though, that we are a member of a very respected and old conference, and the conference revenue sharing policy will come into play. We will only receive 50% of the first round game and 30% of games 2 and 3. So our actual share would be something less than just under $300,000 would be my best guesstimate at this point. And I guess it's very important in my mind that we identify that those funds, in fact, belong to Ball State University. They do not belong to intercollegiate athletics nor to any one sport within the intercollegiate athletic program. And I think that is consistent with the balance that the President mentioned a few moments ago. We fund our programs to the capability of the university. We will have them next year, the year after, and they are consistent with our academic mission. And so while we certainly welcome the influx of those resources, they do not go specifically to athletics. I think the visibility, the image that we in fact have a quality, comprehensive athletic program consistent with the mission of the university is the statement that we want to make to the public. And the visibility that we have gained is considerable. The reaction from people that I've known for many years to myself and to our institution in Denver this past weekend was noticeably different.
Sean,
if Larry, just to interrupt and add a point to Don's statement, I think one of the points that we need to emphasize is that the visibility that Ball State received was reaffirmed or confirmed by the response to the season and to the publicity that our student athletes demonstrated. We got great visibility and got news coverage all over the country because of the kind of athletes that we have and the kind of students that they were and the way they responded to the publicity and to the attention and the way they play. So it was more than just the wins. It was the team and the team effort and the coaches and the players and in fact the fans. We were really seen as an excellent institution to be brought to Salt Lake or to Oakland.
One of the student athletes, Sean Parrish, with us today. There were a lot of highlights this year. If we can talk about the basketball season specifically, the tournament, was there one highlight, was there one thing that stands out in your mind as you look back on this past season, especially tournament play?
Well, as they were showing that clip, as I was sitting there watching it, I get excited every time I see Parrish make that shot and then make the free throw. I know the day after we beat Oregon State, we were sitting around the hotel, and CBS Sports was running a replay of some of the greatest moments in the first 2 days, and we were all just sitting there, and it just sent the emotions just running again. So I think that would have to be the highlight. But then beating Louisville, you know, we went crazy once more, and then
Sure.
come so close to UNLV. So it was just the whole tournament was a great experience.
How did the rest of the university, your coach, Coach Hunsaker, how did they keep this in perspective in terms of, hey, you guys remember when you get back, you've got some studying to do? As a matter of fact, between your first 2 games and then going back to play UNLV, you came back to Muncie and hit the books for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, we came back and we're here for 3 days. We left Wednesday, and that helped a lot. It got a chance to get a couple more books, talk to professors, make sure everything was all right, and then went back out there. But when we came back, the first reaction was it's over. I need to sit back and relax a little bit, but we were so behind in school, we had to get cracking on the books, but now things are getting back to
There's a little catch-up time there
Yeah.
once you got back, yeah. Bill Richards, how does this kind of success impact other students, other athletic programs at Ball State?
Well, there's just no question, Larry, that you know, basketball and football are the 2 most visible sports that almost any university sponsors, and the success of those 2 programs just impacts completely on every other sport at Ball State, men and women, as well as the university in general. Just from a recruiting standpoint, recruiting student athletes in all of our other sports, this type of success, people just automatically parallel that with other programs at the university. And it's like Don was saying earlier, the attitude, even when you know, it's so fun as a coach to pick up the phone after the Oregon State game or the Louisville game and call my top recruit in, you know, Kalamazoo, Michigan or Indianapolis and say, hey, did you just see us beat Louisville? And it's just everyone becomes a part of it and associates with that image of the you know, of the university, and you just can't say enough positive things about what it does for everyone.
We've mentioned the basketball successes, the football successes going to the Raisin Bowl this year. We'd be amiss if we didn't mention the fact we have an outstanding tennis program here at Ball State too.
Well, I appreciate appreciate you mentioning that. I've been here for longer than longer than it seems. I've been here 18 years. I still consider myself the new tennis coach at Ball State, but we were visiting before the show started, and our team is currently ranked 20th in the nation, and there are nearly 300 Division I tennis programs in the nation, and so that's outside of the Mid-American Conference successes that we have had. That would probably be our proudest achievement, to be up there. Our team has been a little bit like the basketball team in terms of expectations as of late, and I think Sean would agree that there's a tremendous amount of pressure put on you when those expectations are there, but not just in tennis or basketball or football. We have outstanding coaches and outstanding programs right across the board, and like President Worthen said earlier, it's really the athletes that we have in those programs. I think all of us share a strong work ethic, and most of our programs at Ball State to compete on a national level with some disadvantages at a high national level, we really have to have athletes that are overachievers and just tremendously hard workers, and that makes you even prouder as a coach to be associated with people like that.
Coach Bill Richards suffers from having won the Mid-America Conference 6 years in a row, and now we just expect him to do that every year. That puts a little pressure on him.
Larry, if I might jump in, like the president, I was going to say that Joe was maybe a little modest when speaking about his own program, and they have in fact won 6 consecutive conference championships. But as we sit here this morning, they're the 20th ranked team in the country, and have defeated, I think, 4 of the Big Ten schools already this spring. Along that same vein, our men's volleyball team is ranked 11th. Hopefully can return to the national championship tournament this spring. Our football team, of course, defending champion, conference champion, and participated in the California Raisin Bowl. We currently lead in the standings for the Reese Trophy for overall supremacy in athletics in the Mid-American Conference. And so that doesn't just happen. That's a byproduct of a lot of hard work on the part of a lot of good people, our coaches and our student athletes. And Bill's term about overachievers is, I think, appropriate, because we're not such of a household name in athletics that we can go in and take the top blue chip recruit in virtually any sport. And we have taken some young men who are regarded as just below that, or a sleeper perhaps, and through the efforts of our coaching staff and basically hard work on the part of our student athletes, these people have risen to a level that has not been seen at this institution prior, and it's a credit to the athletes and to the coaches.
Student athletes is an interesting phrase we use, Sean. How does the university, the athletic department, provide support, encouragement in the academic pursuits of our athletes?
Initially when I came to school, when Coach Majerus was here, he told me he didn't care about my basketball. He cared that I got an education. And he kind of handed that down to Coach Hunsaker, and he carries that out. And we have a great tutorial program Bruce Bolander runs, and he takes care of all the tutors we need if we have any problems. So all the teams are involved in that. So the coaches and the athletic department are really concerned about that we're not just here to represent our school on the sports field, but also get our education, and when we go out into the real world, that we represent them well by having a degree and can say nice things about our institution.
What kind of academic standards do we have for athletes, Bill, and how do you monitor them without looking over their shoulder constantly?
Well, before we mention that specifically, I would agree with Sean that in my tenure at the university, one of the best things that's happened is our academic support group for our athletes. In the early years that I was at Ball State, really it was every coach just kind of for himself trying to stay on top of the progress of the athletes. We now have an academic advisor whose primary responsibility is to advise our athletes. That's Mike Mahan, and as Sean mentioned, we have Bruce Bolander, who coordinates all the tutorial programs, and of course that costs money. And I think that the support from President Worthen and Don Purvis to understand the importance of that type of commitment is extremely critical to the success of those programs and to the overall success of our athletes. As far as the monitoring of our athletes, both Mike Mahan and Bruce Bolander help us in monitoring the progress. Many of our coaches send out mid-semester grade checks to see how their players are doing. And then, of course, we have to work within the framework of the NCAA and the Mid-American Conference, and there are standards that are set by both of those governing bodies in terms of academic eligibility, in terms of progress towards graduation. You know, we could go right through every rule, but it's a combination of a lot of different factors that do oversee the progress of our athletes. And it's been my experience that any athlete that really struggles, any athlete that does not succeed academically, almost always it's because of a lack of responsibility on that individual's part. It's very difficult not to succeed at Ball State because of the tremendous support group that we do have. And I really would be remiss if I didn't mention the professors in general at Ball State really are cooperative with our athletes when, you know, as our basketball team just missed so many days of class. And for those professors to allow them to make up the work and be supportive is a real credit, just campus-wide. It's very much a joint effort. But the key is responsibility from the athletes. No one can do it for the athlete. And I've taken some, I think all of our coaches have taken, recruited and taken into their programs some athletes that necessarily, maybe weren't necessarily great students in high school from the standpoint of ability. Maybe not the greatest test scores, maybe not the greatest reading skills or math skills, but I never hesitate to take a young man like that if I'm convinced that they want to succeed and they want to get an education and that they will be responsible and represent themselves in the university and my program in a very positive way. And, you know, I think that's the key, is we're just talking about responsibility.
And recruiting character there, too. I mean,
well, of course, right, all tied into one, exactly, right.
We're proud of our program here at Ball State University, and we'd like to hold up to the nation as an example, but some programs get into trouble. UNLV has had a lot of bad press because of some of the problems they've had, investigations, attempts for the NCAA to sanction Jerry Tarkanian. We read about the Kentuckys, the Illinois, some of these other programs. There's a lot of pressure to succeed. We talk about the perpetuating athletic success. We talk about the money it can bring into the university, the prestige, the image. How do these programs get into trouble, and how do we stay out of it, Dr. Worthen?
I think it starts with the conference. We're members, as Don Purvis said, of a very fine conference, the Mid-America Conference, and it is a conference of presidents. And if our programs get out of perspective, I think the blame has to start with the president. I heard a large university president, I read a statement of a large university president recently where the athletic department is in deficit. And this president said, we need stronger financial management in the athletic department. I can't believe that kind of statement. You need strong financial management at the president's office and the vice president for business affairs, and those people need to be working with the people who manage finances in the athletic department. So it starts, I think, you mentioned earlier something about the top, and I think the responsibility for having solid ethical programs starts with the chancellor or the president. And we have an opportunity, I think, to manage a very ethical and clean program because our conference gives us support. And we have, and I must say, we don't have some of the pressures that some of the high flyers have. The television money is going to be a very difficult thing for a lot of institutions to resist in the future. And our conference isn't in that game. So I might not be so willing to say what I've just said if I was at an institution where the pressures were probably much greater than they are at Ball State.
Yeah, that puts a different perspective on it when you put that kind of money.
But I think, to just summarize, it has to be the Board of Trustees and the president and the provost. We haven't said anything about Warren Vanderhill, who is was a little All-American basketball player himself and a great academic leader on our campus. And to have that kind of understanding on the part of the chief academic officer is very important to our program too. But that's where it's got to come from.
Yeah. The NCAA has sanctioned, in fact, investigated a very small percentage. In fairness, now we have to say that most programs are run in an exemplary manner and are clean. There are those that get the publicity, though, where they run into trouble. What kind of a job does the NCAA do of looking at these programs?
Larry, they do an excellent job. The public perception sometimes is that the NCAA is Big Brother is watching. And really, the NCAA manual is nothing more than an outgrowth of legislation that was created. It's a cause and effect product. There was a problem, and so legislation was developed to solve it. And over the years, it has grown to be a rather lengthy document, the manual itself. But the NCAA is nothing more than the membership, the institutions themselves. So all the legislation that's in that manual, the institutions have voted upon themselves. The NCAA office simply administers it. Going back to what Dr. Worthen had referenced a few minutes ago, one of the reasons we have not had problems is that we have the right structural model in place. Basically, there are two models. One which is in-house and institutionally administered, which we have, and that's why I referenced that the money that we have just come across, so to speak, by virtue of our participation, belongs to the institution. The other model is an athletic association that some institutions have, which is independent and autonomous from the institutional structure. And historically, institutions that have the independent model, an athletic association, away from the governance of the institution, are the institutions that have had the most problems. And so the place you begin is with an institutional umbrella that encompasses the athletic department as much as it does English, chemistry, political science. And as long as we have that model correct, there are so many cross-checks built into the systems. Coach Richard cannot expend money from the foundation that I don't approve of. And then it requires the assistant to the president's signature before a check is sent out. There are enough cross-checks built into our systems to avoid the abuses. And so I think having the proper model in place is very important. This is a cohesive, integrated institution of which athletics is one part, a highly visible part, but certainly not any more important than any other viable part of the institution. And that's the reason that we're successful.
Well, athletics has become such a big business lately, and there's a lot more of this corruption and wrongdoing out there than people are aware of. Because before I came to Ball State, I was at another school, and I was associated with an awful lot of good players when I was a freshman. And I got to see the kind of offers they were getting from big, you think of big program schools. And I was kind of amazed with the type of lucrative offers that these schools were coming out over the telephone, in person, offering these players. And I thought, well, there's a lot more of this going on than people think. So I think with the pressure to win, the big business, the money coming in universities, there's a lot more going on than people know about.
Some of the problems involve, obviously, some alumni contacts with players. Members of the Cardinal Varsity Club have to know their limits, don't they, Bill?
Right. We work with a 21-member board of directors in the Cardinal Varsity Club, and we really ask these people to not only be our ambassadors of our athletic program to all Cardinal Varsity Club members, of which there are approximately 1,500, but we also ask them to be somewhat of a watchdog for us. And if they see or hear of any potential wrongdoing, whether that be knowingly or unknowingly on the part of what we would call a booster, we certainly want to know about it as quickly as possible. I may be somewhat of a liaison between that group and Don, our athletic director. And, I think these people do a good job of accepting that role most of the problems that we have had, and we've had very few, but most of the potential problems, I guess I should say, are situations where people get involved and unknowingly are violating some type of a rule. We've had just a few examples here recently where there have been a few problems, and we've gotten on top of those right away. But yes, the potential is there, and it's kind of a frightening thing, because someone that does make a gift to the university actually is a representative of the university, and if they go out and make an illegal contact to a recruit or make some type of a public statement, get involved from a financial standpoint, then the university is in violation, and on a repeated basis you can run into some severe penalties for those types of things.
Maintain, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to add that I think those boosters are alumni, are friends of the university who want to support the program can best do that by making contributions to our facilities fund, not to try to help us recruit athletes. We know how to do that. The athletic administration, Don, and the coaches are excellent at recruiting, and they know the rules. But if people want to really give us support, and we're an institution that needs special support, because unlike Notre Dame or a Penn State, where the football programs are generating great dollars and they can use that to help build facilities, we've got to build our facilities with gift funds from the private sector. And right now we're in the middle of a campaign to continue to raise the money to build the arena, which will be, ground will be broken in just a few days. And looking down the road, the football facilities that's next on our agenda.
Improvements. Maintaining that good coaching staff is important. Certainly, we lost Rick Majerus to Utah. Dick Hunsaker was looking at Lamar, and they were talking an offer that would have nearly tripled his salary. We've renegotiated the contract, I understand, here, and as details come out in the days and weeks ahead, there'll be some criticism about we're paying a coach that, but the faculty members make this. How does the university president respond to that in about 30 seconds?
Well, part of our Wings for the Future campaign is designed to raise money for distinguished professorships and endowed chairs for teaching and research faculty. And I think our balance is there. We're not going to let coaches' salaries get out of perspective at the Mid-America Conference, and Dick Hunsaker knows that and hasn't even asked us.
And we don't even have any more time. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for cutting you off on an important question. Don Purvis, Sean Parrish, Bill Richards, Dr. Worthen, thank you for being with us today. I'm Larry Lough. Thank you for joining us.
Public Affairs Roundtable is produced in the studios of WIPB Channel 49 on the campus of Ball State University. The producer is John Rouse. Listener comments are welcome.